a high-quality knowledge podcast for hitchhikers traveling the galaxy. This is Lab 42.
I want you to picture your morning routine for a second. You walk into that coffee shop, the one you go to 3 times a week. You order the usual oat milk latte, extra hot. You're watching the barista, the steam, the pour, the handoff. And it tastes exactly the same as it did on Tuesday. And, well, exactly the same as it did 2 weeks ago.
That consistency is something we all just take for granted, isn't it? Until it's suddenly gone.
Right. But then later that night, you're on your phone, you order a replacement charger for your laptop because you left yours at the office. And somehow, it's almost miraculous, it shows up at your doorstep by lunch the next day. And you just have to think, how? Not just, wow, that's fast, but like mechanically, physically. How did that object navigate the chaos of the world to land on my porch without a single hitch?
It really does feel like magic. Arthur C. Clarke famously said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But in the business world, that magic isn't a spell. It's a discipline. It's operations management.
Operations management. I have to be honest, when I first saw the topic for this deep dive, my brain went straight to, clipboards, hairnets, and guys in high-vis vests shouting about forklifts. It just sounds dry.
It has a bit of a branding problem, for sure. People hear operations and they think of the basement of the building, where the boilers are. But the mission for this deep dive is to reframe that completely. We need to stop looking at OM as just managing production or keeping the lights on. It is actually the engine of value creation.
Value creation. Okay, that's a consultant buzzword if I've ever heard one. Let's unpack that. What does it actually mean in this context?
It's really the so what of business. The textbook definition of operations management is, it's the systematic design, direction, and control of processes that transform inputs into services and products.
See, that's where my eyes start to glaze over.
Stay with me. Let's simplify it.
Yeah.
It's about taking a pile of stuff, ingredients, data, raw materials, labor, and putting them through a process so that what comes out the other end is worth more than the sum of what went in.
Okay, so if I buy $50 worth of wood and screws and I spend my weekend building a table and then I sell that table for $200, that gap, that extra $150, that's operations.
That is the value added. Precisely. If the output isn't worth more than the inputs, you don't have a business. You have a very expensive hobby. And to really see where this fits, you can imagine a business as a tripod, with 3 legs.
Okay, what are the legs?
Well, leg 1 is finance. That's the capital, the money to get the game started. Leg 2 is marketing. That's understanding what the customer needs and convincing them to buy it. And leg 3, that's operations. Right. That is the execution.
I saw a great line in the research about this. It said, marketing is the promise made to the customer. Operations is the promise kept.
That's it. That is the core of it. You can have the best Super Bowl ad in history, promising the fastest delivery or the tastiest burger. But if your logistics are a mess or your kitchen is dirty, you've broken the promise. The brand collapses. Operations is the reality check.
So let's look under the hood. How does this engine actually run? We have this framework called the input transformation output model, which sounds simple enough. Stuff goes in, magic happens, stuff comes out.
It is simple, but the nuance is where companies live or die. Let's take 2 very different examples to walk through this. How about a specialty coffee shop versus a smartphone manufacturer?
Okay, sounds good. Let's start with inputs, the ingredients.
Right. We usually categorize these into 5 buckets. First, you have human resources.
Which in the coffee shop, that's just the barista, right?
It's the barista, yes. That's your direct labor. But it's also the indirect labor, the manager making the schedule, the person mopping the floor, and then the professionals, maybe the food scientist at corporate headquarters who's inventing the next pumpkin spice syrup. It's not just bodies, it's skills and talent.
Then you have capital, which I'm guessing means the cash in the register.
That's financial capital, yes. But in operations, we care a lot about physical capital, the espresso machine, the grinder, the building itself. These are assets you use to create the value, but they aren't part of the product itself. You don't sell the espresso machine to the customer.
Okay, now here is where I got into a bit of a mental wrestle with the source material. We have materials, but the breakdown distinguishes between raw materials and parts. And I'm looking at the list for a latte, and it lists milk as a component part. This feels wrong. Milk is a liquid. It's natural. How is it a part like a screw or a battery?
It does feel counterintuitive, doesn't it? But think about the processing. Did the barista milk the cow?
I certainly hope not.
Did the coffee shop pasteurize the milk? Did they bottle it?
No, they just open a plastic jug from a supplier.
Exactly. In the eyes of operations, a raw material is something the business has to fundamentally transform, either physically or chemically. The coffee shop takes green beans, roasts them, grinds them, and extracts the espresso under pressure. That is a massive transformation. That bean is a raw material.
But the milk.
The milk is a finished good from another supplier that is just being used as an assembly piece in the final product. Mechanically, pouring that milk is the same as a factory worker snapping a camera lens onto a smartphone body. You're just taking a finished component and integrating it.
That is wild. I never thought about a latte as an assembly job. But I guess when you think about inventory, it makes total sense.
It changes how you manage it. And then, of course, the final input is the invisible one, information and technology. The recipe for the latte, the patent for the phone screen, the data on who buys what. You can't touch it, but the machine stops without it.
So we have our inputs. Then we hit the transformation, the magic box. We put the wooden screws in or the beans and milk, and something happens. But looking at the notes, it's not always physical manufacturing, is it?
No, and this is where people get tripped up. Manufacturing is physical transformation. But think about a trucking company. They don't change the box they are carrying.
No, they just move it from one place to another.
That's locational transformation. They are adding value by changing where the object is. A shirt in a factory in Bangladesh is useless to you. A shirt in your closet is valuable. The truck adds that value.
What about a retail store then?
Exchange transformation. They facilitate the ownership change. A warehouse. Storage transformation holding value over time. A consultant. Informational transformation. Most businesses are actually a hybrid mix of all of these.
And then finally, the output. We get either goods or services.
Or, more often than not, both. Goods are tangible. You can drop them on your foot. A smartphone is a good. And, importantly, you can stare it. If Apple makes a phone today and doesn't sell it, they can sell it next week.
But a service.
A service is intangible and it's perishable. Think about an airline seat.
Right. If the plane takes off empty, you can't sell that seat tomorrow.
Exactly. That revenue is gone forever. That's perishability. Plus, services usually happen simultaneously. You are consuming the haircut while the barber is producing it. You can't quality check a haircut in a back room before giving it to the customer.
Which makes quality control a total nightmare compared to a phone factory.
It's a completely different ballgame.
Speaking of doing things differently, let's talk about a company that basically looked at this entire input transformation output model and decided to just break every rule. IKEA.
Oh, IKEA is the ultimate operations case study.
We all know the meatballs, we all know the maze. But looking at this, IKEA isn't really a furniture company, are they? They're a logistics company that just happens to sell wood.
That's a pretty fair assessment. IKEA illustrates how operations is strategy. It starts with their design philosophy. Most companies do cost-plus pricing. They design a nice table, calculate how much the wood and labor costs, say, $40, add their profit, and sell it for $60.
That sounds logical.
IKEA does it completely backward. They use target costing. They start with a price tag. They say, we need a coffee table that sells for $15. That is the unmovable constraint.
So the designer has to figure out how to make a table that doesn't fall apart for $15?
Right. And it forces innovation. They have to use honeycomb paper filling instead of solid wood. They have to change the manufacturing process. The price dictates the entire operation.
And one of the huge ways they hit that low price is the famous flat pack. Now, I always assumed flat packing was just for convenience so I could jam the box into my Honda Civic. But you're telling me that's not the main reason?
It's a benefit, sure, but it's not the driver. The driver is what we call shipping air.
Shipping air.
Think about a fully assembled armchair. If you put that on a shipping container, what's taking up most of the space?
The space under the seat, the gap between the legs, air.
Exactly. It's air. If you ship assembled furniture, you are paying thousands of dollars to ship oxygen across the Atlantic. By flat packing, IKEA squeezes all the air out. The data is staggering. They get about 6 times the loading efficiency of traditional furniture companies.
6 times. So where a normal company needs 6 trucks.
IKEA sends one. Just think about the fuel savings, the driver wages, the warehousing space. It just slashes the cost base, which lets them keep that $15 price tag.
But there's another cost they slashed. Labor. Because they don't assemble the furniture. I do.
Welcome to the team. That's customer co-production. In a traditional model, the manufacturer pays someone to assemble the product. IKEA shifted that labor to you. You are technically an unpaid worker on their assembly line.
I knew it.
But here is the psychological twist. It's called the IKEA effect. Research from Harvard shows that because you built it, you actually value it more.
Because I sweat over it.
Because you invested effort. It creates an emotional attachment. So they cut their labor cost to zero and simultaneously increase your loyalty to the product. It's diabolical genius.
It really is. And the store itself is part of the output, isn't it? It's a hybrid.
It's a solution. They don't just sell desks. They sell the home office look. And they solve the barriers to shopping. Why do people leave stores? Kids get bored or they get hungry?
Hence the Smolin ball pit and the cafeteria.
Precisely. The childcare removes the distraction. The meatballs, which are often sold at or near cost, solve the hunger problem. It extends what's called the dwell time. A fed parent with a happy kid buys a road they didn't even know they needed.
It's such a tightly wound ecosystem. Now, if IKEA mastered the product design and the customer labor, there's another giant that mastered the flow, Amazon.
We can't talk operations without Bezos.
The notes highlight this shift from looking at departments to looking at processes. Can you explain that distinction?
Sure, traditional business is built on silos. You have the marketing department, the logistics department, the IT department. They barely talk to each other. The process view, which Amazon worships, looks at the flow. It's like a relay race. It doesn't matter how fast the individual runners are if they drop the baton during the handoff.
So Amazon looks at order fulfillment as just one long thread.
From the moment you click buy to the moment it hits your porch. They don't care which department owns which piece. They optimize the entire stream. And this all feeds into Bezos's famous flywheel.
The napkin sketch.
The napkin sketch. It's a virtuous cycle. A better customer experience leads to more traffic. More traffic attracts more sellers. More sellers means more selection. More selection improves the customer experience. And spinning this whole wheel creates growth, which lowers the cost structure.
Allowing for lower prices.
Which then improves the customer experience again. It just feeds itself. But the engine spinning that wheel is the fulfillment center.
And this is where the magic we talked about at the start really happens. I want to talk about the robots, because I used to think a warehouse was just shelves and guys with clipboards. But Amazon reversed the whole model with Kiva systems.
They did. In a normal warehouse, a human walks to a shelf to get a book. That's slow. Humans get tired, they walk slow. Amazon bought Kiva systems so the robots could bring the shelf to the human.
It's like the library coming to you.
And it boosted productivity by 300 to 400%. The picker just stands there and the shelves dance around them.
And then the package hits the slam line.
SLAM, scan, label, apply, manifest.
Which sounds like a pro wrestling move.
It's about as aggressive. It's an automated machine that weighs the package to make sure the right item is inside, prints the shipping label, and blasts it onto the box with a jet of air. The whole thing takes less than a second. No human hands touch it.
What really blew my mind in the research was the predictive placement. Because I always assumed a warehouse was organized like a grocery store. Cereal in aisle 4, milk in the back, electronics with electronics.
That's how a human organizes, because our brains need categories. But Amazon's robots don't care about categories. They care about correlations.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, let's say the algorithm notices that on Friday nights, people who buy diapers also tend to buy, I don't know, beer.
The I Give Up starter pack.
Exactly. A human stalker would put diapers in baby and beer in alcohol. They're a football field apart. The Amazon AI says, no, put the beer right next to the diapers. It optimizes the physical layout of the building in real time based on what people are clicking.
That is brilliant and slightly terrifying. It knows what we want before we do.
It creates what looks like chaotic storage to the human eye, but it's perfect order for the algorithm.
One last thing on Amazon, the AWS story. This feels like the ultimate example of operations as strategy.
It's the story of a support process becoming a core product. Amazon built this massive server infrastructure just to run their own store. It was a cost center, a huge electricity bill, but they got so good at running it, they realized, hey, other companies struggle with this, let's rent it out to them.
And now AWS makes more profit than the entire retail store.
They turned their internal plumbing into gold.
It's fascinating to see these modern giants.
Yeah.
But we didn't just arrive here overnight. This level of sophistication, it feels like we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
We absolutely are. You can trace Amazon's robots directly back 200 years. Well, you can start with Eli Whitney. Most people know him for the cotton gin, but his real contribution to operations was the musket. Yeah. Back then, every gun was handcrafted. If the trigger broke, you had to find a blacksmith to file a new piece of metal to fit that specific gun. Whitney introduced interchangeable parts.
Standardization?
A trigger for one musket fits any musket. It seems so obvious to us now, but that was the big bang of mass production. You can't have IKEA flat packs without interchangeable parts.
Then we move to the guy who would probably love Amazon's slam machine, Frederick Taylor.
The father of scientific management, the man with the stopwatch, he was obsessed with finding the one best way. He would literally watch a worker shovel coal and analyze every single motion to shave off seconds.
It sounds a bit robotic.
It was very dehumanizing. It treated people like components, but it exploded productivity.
Yeah.
He was the one who separated planning from doing.
Yeah.
And he paved the way for Henry Ford.
Who gave us the assembly line.
Ford combined Whitney's parts and Taylor's efficiency with a moving conveyor belt. He brought the work to the worker, just like the Kiva robots do today.
But Ford had a blind spot, didn't he? Any color so long as it's black?
He was obsessed with efficiency. Black paint dried the fastest, so that's all he used. He drove costs down so low that his own workers could afford the cars, the famous $5 workday, but he totally ignored variety.
Which opened a door for GM.
Alfred Sloan at GM, he looked at Ford and said, people aren't just robots, they want status, they want style. He introduced a car for every person purpose, Chevrolet for the entry level, Cadillac for the executive. He introduced the yearly model change.
So Ford won on efficiency, but GM won on marketing and variety.
And if you look at Amazon or IKEA today, they are trying to do both. They want the ruthless efficiency of Ford's black car with the infinite variety of Sloan's GM. That is the modern operational holy grail, mass customization.
It really is a journey. We've gone from the basic inputs of a coffee shop, debating whether milk is a raw material or a part, to the flat packing logic of IKEA, to the predictive AI of Amazon, and all the way back to the muskets that started it all.
It's a huge landscape.
If there was one thing our listeners should take away from all this, besides looking at their IKEA desk with a bit more suspicion, what is it?
It's that operations management isn't just about making things efficient. It's about strategy. It is the mechanism by which a company translates a vision into reality. IKEA's vision of furniture for everyone only works because of flat packing. Amazon's vision of the everything store only works because of those robots. If you don't understand the engine, you can't drive the car.
That's a great way to put it. And I have a final thought to leave you with, something that's been bugging me since we talked about the IKEA effect.
Wow.
We talked about how IKEA makes us build a desk to save money. We talked about Amazon using our data to predict our desires. We use self-checkouts at the grocery store. We order our own food on screens at McDonald's.
We are doing more and more of the work.
Exactly. In an era of AI and automation, are we, the consumers, actually becoming the operations managers of our own consumption? Are we just the final step in the assembly line now?
That is a haunting question. I think we might be.
Something to think about while you brew your own coffee tomorrow morning. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.
That's all for today's episode of Lab 42. If you enjoyed this story of impossible engineering, leave us a review. Safe travels, hitchhikers. See you in the next galaxy.